All right, it's 5:02 and you're live.
All right, thank you. Everybody's here, so shall we start with the roll? And I'll announce that I'm here. Luke,
I too am here.
Dave Risberger,
I'm here.
and Katie Lepari-Show.
Yes.
Great. And we also have in the room Gary Herzig. And also Judy, hi. Lost you for a moment. So the first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 8th. Are people fine with that?
They look good to me.
Okay. And now we don't have, I know we talked at another meeting about public comment. Do we have any ability for that, or is anybody here who's come onto the site?
You have no public comments, nor do you have any correspondence.
Okay, so what we've got is two topics, and one is for the Public Arts Commission ordinance, and the other is for a Housing Commission ordinance. Do you want to go in one order? Oh, Luke.
Yeah, John, if you don't mind, I just wanted to give the committee a really quick update. I just want to let everybody know here that I've been working with Steve Yearley on the B ordinance, and we're working closely together on that, and we're pushing forward with it. Just before we dived into some of the denser stuff.
Sure, I had that as a back burner issue about where that might be, so it's good to have that update.
Yeah, it is coming through the pipes.
They are. So with that, who would like to, we have housing and public arts. Who'd like to go first? Dave? Katie? Does it matter? Dave?
I would yield. That's okay. Housing is
Okay.
good.
Thanks,
All
Katie.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
this is something that was brought up at the planning committee. We developed over the course of a few different meetings. Mark Davies did a lot of initial work on it for us with developing the purpose, and we threw this together. And Dave Merzig, what you have in front of you is what Dave Merzig has come up with. Judy also had an awful lot of input in this in the initial push for this, whether you know it or not, Judy. I think Judy's been doing an awful lot of work to help us with our housing issue that we have. And this really came out of the fact that we had the initial housing meeting about close to 10 years ago that had approximately 80 people show up, that we separated into various committees. And then what came out of that was the Housing Commission that was a temporary ad hoc commission. And that led to a housing plan that I believe was then incorporated into the comprehensive plan. Am I correct on that, Gary? No? Okay. Gary sat on that commission with me. And
Is that the one from 2013?
Yes.
Okay.
Peter Friedman, Ed May, Lori Zimnowitz, Gary, myself, there were a few other people.
Ruth?
And there's still, obviously, there's an awful lot of issues that we still have to address, even though we've made a lot of progress. And the thought was that these issues aren't going to go away. And it would be a lot easier if we had a regular commission that could then help research some of what's out there to help solve the problems as they come up, maybe alleviate some of the workload for Judy and work with Judy in conjunction with the council, of course. And so the thought was then to come up with a permanent housing commission that would try to help tackle some of these issues that we have.
Okay, fair enough. Luke?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I think this is really, really important. You know, I can speak firsthand to how difficult it is living in the city. Without my roommate, I don't know if I would be able to live in the city. And I think really trying to help folks find housing that is affordable as well as quality is something that going forward in combination with our strategic plan, I think it's really important. And I think this commission is a good step towards that goal.
Okay. Katie, do you have thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, I agree. This is something I agree with Luke and Dave that this is something that's really important. Judy can attest that, this is something that's been on my mind for a long time. So I'm really happy to see it as something, this feels like a powerhouse move that could really make a big change in the city. And a really concerted effort. So I'm excited about that. With regard to the legislation, it looks good. Most of it is pretty boilerplate. I think the purpose really gets into why we're establishing this commission and what their charge is. And I know that it addresses the needs of seniors and of families and addresses the kind of imbalance of rentals and student rentals to other types of rental properties. So I think it looks good to me. I would support putting it forward and let the council as a whole move on this.
Okay. Judy.
You'd think I'd learn by now to have my mute off. One thing I was wondering, can we add fair housing to the tasks? Because it's a requirement on our CDBG grants, whether they're housing or not, that we address our fair housing issues. And we need to develop a fair housing plan, which I think this commission is perfectly set to work on.
Oh,
And
that's right. We talked about that, didn't
it's
we?
an ongoing, it's a thing that will never be away from is fair housing. And my understanding is the federal government is going to be focused on that more than ever now. So there might be more things that we have to do as a result. But we just passed that resolution back in November about fair housing. So it ties in really well to this commission, and I think it should be an actual task.
Under powers and duties.
Yeah. I don't know if Dave Merzick should weigh in on that, but I would highly recommend that we do that.
Well,
Okay.
I have no objection to adding that in there. And then if this group decides to move this forward to the full council, we could have the discussion. We'll make sure that we point this out to the planning committee that it already passed it as is. And then if there's any questions as to having that in there, we could have that conversation then.
Okay.
That's just my thought, though.
No, I just, I spoke with Dave about this earlier. The only concern I have, and I support the existence of a commission, in looking at the statement of purpose, I saw a very long set of a very long paragraph outlining a number of things in the purpose, and I looked at looking at our charter and seeing generally 2 or 3 lines describing the purpose of the commission, and then other kind of whatever group there is. This one seemed to be loaded with intentions that it will be doing this, 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 this. And what I would suggest is that that be made briefer. And since we have our comprehensive plan, which has a list of issues, and we also have the 2013, which I also saw and got it out from the website. And I remember Ruth sending it to me years back. I think that we have at least a couple of documents that outline the problems that are to be addressed in terms of housing. And I would recommend, yeah, Katie?
Oh, no, please finish your thought. I have additional thoughts.
Okay. And
Thanks.
to kind of model the ordinance, much like other ordinances, and move on and reference the comprehensive plan or another place giving examples of what we want the group to do. But this group is also an advisory group, and they will, and that sets a certain, we can give that group direction, but I would suggest making that a less wordy statement of the purpose, and instead refer to the comprehensive plan, the housing study, and anything else that we would like to either through a liaison or whatever sort of guidance in terms of time to be spent, projects to be examined, give that to the people who, once they're on the commission, and say that's what we're asking to be done, but not try to encapsulate a statement of purpose that will be going into the charter. So that's my thought on it. Other than that, I would support having this go forward to the council and letting it be weighed in on by the council, and let, I just saw it last week and this week, and the council needs to see it and give its thought to it.
I have something to add, but Katie should go first.
Mhm.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I think that John raises a really good point that we do have these resources and things that have sort of already been worked on. And I think the purpose of the group really is to ensure that that work that has already been done moves forward. And so I think that's a really good piece of feedback, is to include what has already been done within the ordinance. With that being said, there's nothing wrong with taking a fresh look at where we stand now and what needs to be done as of today. So that was just kind of my 2 cents with that, is that I don't think there's anything wrong with saying this is the purpose now. This is why we're establishing this commission now. But I do think that we should, just ensure that they're doing the work that has already been done in order to move the city forward in a direction that has been researched by an abundance of people.
Mm-hmm. One other thing with that is it got me thinking when I started to read the comprehensive plan and I started to read the housing plan from 1-3, that there have been things done and things barely discussed since some of these things have been, they're just, housing is housing. We have students, we have a number of issues that are related to that. We still have short-term housing or vacation, short-term stays. We have a lot of housing issues that we've tried to deal with in other ways. And I think it would be great to have a housing group spend time where they're trying to brainstorm ideas and come up with things. And the other piece to it is that I was kind of shocked in a way that we haven't looked much at the comprehensive plans and the updates. I found strategic plans from 2020 and 2021 that we don't look at. So I think that as a council, there's a way to, it's an opportunity to say, can we have a mechanism that we're paying attention to plans, proposals, and studies that have occurred in the distant and in the not so distant past. So I'm fine with moving this forward. My recommendation would be to shorten up the statement of purpose, and wherever else we want, we get to phrase it not so much as as assignments, but as these are the opportunities or the such areas as, because we're not going to be managing that group they'll have a certain head to it about what they're going to do. The frequency of their meeting, et cetera, they'll have a certain amount of time to work. So we'll see. Dave?
Well, I
So-
think the idea is to set clear expectations. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Obviously, since I brought this forward from the planning committee, I find that the findings and purpose listed are pretty strong. The purpose, if you look at this, well, number one, this is going to be written into the code, not the charter.
That's right. It'll be a legal document that lists the assignment to this
Right.
committee, unlike any other committee we have.
Right, but the purpose listed is the last sentence of that paragraph. So,
I
and the
don't- yeah.
purpose is to address the issues that are listed above it. So are you saying the issues listed above it should not be written in there, John?
Right. Those
Well, then
purposes are in
that's the findings. Those are
the finding of what?
It's you have the purpose of the housing
reason
commission.
why-
You want to say why you have that purpose there, like what's going on that led you to this purpose of developing the commission.
So it's the rationale the council has for putting this in. And
Right.
why don't we have that in other?
I don't
other
know. I
committees?
didn't write the other ones.
I know, but they're
Right.
in the charter. You can see what they say, and actually I could suggest that some of the other committees may or may not be doing some of the things they could be doing. We're not always, that's all. So I don't want to wordsmith it. If you want to put that in front of I will state my concern about that when I guess we'd be voting on it. We won't be discussing it in any way, except you want to lay this on at the next council meeting?
Well, I actually, if we want it on the next council meeting's agenda, it's got to be laid tonight.
Well, if you want to lay it on, and then it'd be laid on, there'd be no just correct me,
Yeah, we would discuss it.
huh?
There would be discussion. I mean, we could.
When you lay it on, that will be on the agenda to discuss the acceptability of the wording.
I
Yeah,
think
right.
any member can bring it up if they
you-
want to, John. If anybody wants to pull it from the agenda and discuss it, that's their
Or it
prerogative.
can be on the discussion agenda.
No, I mean, it'll be laid on the desks, it'll be discussed, it'll be voted on. You will not have the option, you'll have the option of either approving it or not approving it. You will not be able to change it in any way without relaying it for another day.
Then Gary, how do we add in developing a fair housing plan under powers and duties?
You just do that before you lay it.
Well,
Just edit the document.
that's what I would think too, Katie. I'm not sure that I have the ability to write this in here though. All I've got, I thought I had more than a PDF, but all I've got is a PDF document.
Mhm.
You want to send it to me? I can try to do it.
Do you have?
And then Judy, would you,
What? Go
I
ahead.
think so. Judy, would you just email me the appropriate language for would like it to say? And then it's going to go under the powers and duties. Okay.
Can I Gary?
Yeah.
To clarify that then, if it's laid without discussion, we would discuss it. And if we wanted to see changes, we could propose those changes. But at the next view of that, we would have to vote on it.
The only thing you could approve at the next council meeting would be
Right.
document as written. If the council decides you want to make changes to it, you would have to relay it for a future council meeting.
Okay,
A good example is the mask ordinance, right? Which was
Yeah, this is just.
vetoed and then rewritten and relayed.
This is basically the same as an ordinance, and it has to be it has to be received by the council members in its final form a week before it's voted on.
Okay,
Judy, do we really need to put in the fair housing plan into this? What we have under number 5 under powers and duties is carry out other such duties as the mayor and common council may assign from time to time. How often is the fair housing plan done? I mean, the last time it was done was what, in the 1980s, I think you said?
Yeah, but there are actually activities that you do as fair housing that I think should come under this commission.
Okay,
So, like there are things that you need to consider, and as CDBG, if they change what those activities are, this organization or this commission would need to, address that. And I was just thinking that it would be very clear to Homes and Community Renewal Office if that's there under their purview.
okay.
So we can say we did the resolution, but we also have a housing commission that is taking on the fair housing process and plan and implementation.
So what would you like it? I've got the Word document now. So we can just add this. How do you want it to be read or written?
I think just it's a fair housing program. Let me just see the wording. Develop and implement fair housing program, the city's fair housing program. And I think that would cover it forever. I had another consideration here, where it says the city clerk shall serve as the secretary of the commission. And I believe the art one is that as well. Does city clerk's office have that capacity to, because this is, more meetings?
Mhm.
Well,
And
they don't necessarily print out agendas, but do they maintain the digital record?
yeah, but it'll be not digital. It'll be in-person meetings, I'm assuming.
Carrie,
Unless we
do
do
you
a
have anything to
combination.
add about that?
So we do act as the secretary. Honestly, we serve as the secretary to 99% of our boards and commissions. Some of them we attend in person, some of them we do not. There are some boards and commissions that have taken on the responsibility of preparing their own agendas and minutes. And let me just say out loud, I'm grateful to them. But one more meeting, especially as we start to transition, hopefully in the near future, back to real life, we could do it.
Okay.
I view it more as we have that role of maintaining the records. We have that role of maintaining the information, of tracking, of helping with correspondence, that type of deal, more than being an active participant.
Okay. And I'm hoping that in the near future, I'll be able to have staff, which I think the community development department would be able to help with work that's actually coming out of here, like the fair housing plan, the written plan would probably be coming out of my department, I would assume. But I don't know if you need that in here. I don't know. So, but I need staff, and I'm going to be working on that so that we would have the capacity to work on these items.
We can always come back. I mean, this could be adjusted at any time if we feel it needs to be adjusted.
That's one of the concerns I had about, once it's in the charter or the code, then an adjustment would need to be brought up again and we'd have to approve the adjustment. Rather than being somewhat vague and leave room that we don't have to go back to these things and make changes 3 weeks from now or 6 months from now. That's why I'm making that case for keeping it simple, but making it clear about where we want to go. Unless, as Judy was saying, there's some wording that has to exist in the charter to support something is required or would help us get grants or get us something. If there's some advantage to putting specific language in our charter about this, fine. But I think that can also be, for example, and list the kinds of things we're interested in. But that's, I'll bring that up when we're discussing it.
And I wouldn't disagree with you on that, John. I think, though, that what we put in here is pretty general, or it's not anything that I see changing for 20, 30 years, unfortunately. I think the city has developed this problem over decades time, and it's going to take us decades to climb out of it. And as far as the powers and duties, I think what's listed, the 5 that are already listed are very generalized, but that's also why I asked Judy specifically about the fair housing program.
Sure.
That's something that's a one-time thing that's or is it going to be an ongoing thing for quite a while? So I feel comfortable with what she's told us and adding that under powers and duties, the way she wrote it.
Powers and duties, yeah. Okay. So I will, as this goes to be laid, I'll reserve my right to talk about, my concern if it's not being dealt with at this time. So I'll bring it up at the council meeting. That may delay it a bit. If others agree, we can see.
Okay.
And again, my thing is be having a balance rather than changing the language we're using in the charter or the formats we're using. The alternative is to go back and look at every committee and see if they are properly purposed. Because we have 3 lines generally, 3 or 4 lines tops about purposes, and we have a very long multi-sentence paragraph for this, and I think that's out of balance. One way or the other, you can go back and look at the poor job that was done earlier and try to rectify it, or we can just say it gives us a lot of freedom to say what we want this group that's going to be assembled to do, and they either do it or then we'll go back and what would you do? Well, we'll get rid of them, I guess.
John, I have one more question for Judy, if it's all right.
Sure.
And maybe Gary. Develop and implement the city's fair housing program. This body would not have the power to implement the program. Should it read develop and recommend?
Yes, everything about this
City of
committee should be a
Oneonta's fair housing
recommendation
program?
or advice. All committees are advisory committees.
Well, I'm aware of that,
And-
John. I just want to make sure that I'm correct on the implement word.
Oh, yeah,
That's fine with me. Gary, does that work?
sure. Okay, we have a half hour. I have to go to another meeting at 6. You guys I'll have to exit then. So maybe we should, proceed the way you want to proceed. And I think that's to Katie. Are we okay, Dave, to move on?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
John, we all have to exit because the other meeting needs the Zoom platform.
all right, okay. So there we go. We have a 6 o'clock deadline. So Katie?
Great, thank you. So, yeah, I have written some code, I guess, with the purpose of creating a public arts commission. I guess you guys have had it for a while. So I would just open it up to specific comments or feedback about the legislation as presented. I can editorialize if you want, but in the interest of time.
Luke?
Luke.
Oh, I saw a hand up. I'm just,
Well, thank you both.
No, you're
That's
cheering.
wonderful.
That's good.
talk to the
Yeah.
hand.
First of all, Katie, I think this is great. I think it's really important, especially as we're really trying to promote ourselves as a city of the arts. It's really good to have a public arts commission.
Yes.
The one question I had was, just to help my understanding a little bit more, is there was a line in there, and I'm looking through my email, and I have trouble with Outlook for some reason, but I lost it. But there was a line in there that would be all public art, even on private property. Would that include, so for example, if someone wanted to, I don't know, put a small sculpture on their lawn, would they have to get it approved first?
Let me pull it up and just read it. My gut says no.
Okay.
What,
And I apologize.
I think that it,
other than just being incompetent with this email, I would have
Yeah,
had it open
Luke,
already.
No.
it doesn't sound like public art.
Okay.
What you're describing.
right. It does
Private property.
mention something about private property, but I think it's an exclusion of private property.
Okay, then I
That's okay. I'm just trying to, my computer's loading it right now, just so that I can read it and,
Oh, it's right here. Public art shall mean either of the following. All forms of public art that do not constitute a sign as defined by 300 sign regulations of the zoning code of the city of Oneonta and are located within the city right-of-way on public land owned by the city of Oneonta or on vacant property owned by a land bank.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I think that's your answer, I think.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I mean, good
just,
question, because we wouldn't want to do that.
Right.
just getting wacky on that. If someone hung a piece of art or posted a piece of art on their property, would that be considered a sign?
Yeah, I think that you need a variance, but that's entirely in the weeds, and that would be a question for our code enforcement office.
Okay,
I don't think it applies to this, John.
okay.
Does not.
It doesn't give me permission to do that. Okay,
It does not.
it's a very artistic for rent sign.
There are, in our code, it specifies how large those signs can be in subsection 300.
But it'd be a distinction between a sign and
That's
something.
fair, and I guess that would be something for the individual and the code office to discuss, but it has nothing to do with this legislation.
Great.
Any other questions or comments?
Judy?
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 I should, okay.
Sorry, you wanna go with council questions first?
Would that be okay? I feel like that's more
Yeah,
appropriate.
go ahead. If you
And
wanna
then I
go
would
council,
love to hear what you have to say. Okay, thank you. Dave?
I'm thinking.
Okay, then
I
I'm
had,
gonna let Judy go.
yeah, let Judy go.
Okay, so.
Okay.
So I just have a question about the process with a commission like this. So
Yes.
they, like, Greg and I put in an application a while back to DOT for funding for the sidewalks on Lettuce Highway. And
Yes.
part of that may have included some signage. If we'd gotten it, some of it would have included maybe possibly archways either across Lettuce Highway with Oneonta across it, or archways into the parks,
Mhm.
Niwa and Catella from Lettuce Highway with, archways.
Mhm.
So if we
Oh, you
went
know
for
what?
that,
That would be
do you have
beautiful.
to go? I'm sorry, what was that? If we
That
had,
would be beautiful.
okay, yeah, so it's awesome and everything, but in terms of a commission like this, if we just go for funding like that, would that piece have to be like pre-approved by a commission first?
I
Or
doubt it,
can we go for the
because
money and
this
then-
would be,
Go ahead.
yeah, so this would be, so the reason why I doubt that is because it would be something that the city was doing, on its own property. And so again, I feel like discussing this, probably Dave Merzig is the guy, but my understanding would be that this would be for independent artists who wanted to create art of the forms that are described on just to simplify it, city property. And so if the city wants to do something on city property, that's different. With that said, you know, I think that they have a really great potential as an advisory committee on consistency and branding and things like that, and making sure that, you know, we're telling the same story throughout the city. And so I think that it would be something where, you know, bringing them in on it would be advisable, but I don't think that the creation of this commission would preclude the city from anything like that. Maris, you nodding your head, do you have any thoughts?
I agree with you,
Or are you
Katie.
just listening?
No, I agree with
Actively
you.
listening.
I agree with you.
Okay.
With that, I'd like to state again, that this commission is an advisory commission. It's not approving something. I'd rather not have a committee approving that. And also language like controlling the art based on taste or other kinds of judgments. We have to be careful about that. That the council would be approving something. It would essentially be up to us to approve a recommendation. And that's the role of all our committees.
right.
That's the proviso
That's
for
right.
them all, that they advise us. And
That's right.
I wouldn't like to kind of miss that. I had a couple of concerns about stating that, and this we can discuss because again, like this one, I like the idea of an arts commission. I would support it. I think some of the language saying that the members of this committee, so many will be artists. I think that I'm sure we'll be able to find that artists would be the primary choice for Gary in nominating people to be on this committee.
Mhm.
And that's fine, but I'd rather not see a quota in the areas. I was thinking earlier that it makes sense for the board for the electrical examination or examination of elections, and then the plumbers. There's a propensity to put plumbers or electricians onto those boards, though that's not exclusive. I mean, but that makes a great deal of sense. But the definition of an artist is a bit, and who's friendly to the artists and knowledgeable about art. I think that should be a consideration. We shouldn't try to recruit from the plumbers board necessarily, though they may very well be artists.
Sure. Did you read that? Did you read that statement, John? Because it does say that, you know, people should be.
I think there was a number. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately.
Primarily involved.
I'll look at it when I see it again.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Okay. Yeah, so there's a clause in there that states that to be affiliated with the arts in some way at the mayor's discretion and upon approval of the council. So to your point, John, it is very subjective. You know, there are people who don't create art, but they facilitate it in some way, or they're a member of the community with great depth of knowledge. Maybe they were an artist and they're not anymore. And so that statement is meant to give that morality you are looking for when it comes to filling the board.
One other thing I was a little bit, it seems to be an arts committee that's concerned with visual arts. Music isn't mentioned, performing arts aren't mentioned. And that's a bit of a concern. I think we have a lot of, I'm sorry.
It's for the installation of art on public property. So it's,
okay,
we wouldn't have a permanent musical installation. Yeah. Yeah, and that question was raised another time to me, and that's why I have a prepared response for you. That yeah, it's just not concerned with that. So
this
so
is
their scope is
literally for things that are attached to our property or placed in our. And so if I should want to have or suggest a sculpture garden, for the park. Because it has mass and weight, that would be an installation. Okay,
Correct. Yep. And that's not to say that they can't, one of the things that I envision, it's not written into this code, John, which I'm sure you're thrilled about, is that it does say promote arts and culture within the city. And so music could certainly fall within that scope. Theater could certainly fall within scope with regard to, hosting events or, things like that. But that's something that would be kind of worked out as the commission moves forward. Because I would love to see personally like an art walk on Friday nights in the summer. But that's not something that, I'm going to write into the.
well, there's also an issue there around what the city, what we're able to do. What, we can promote the art walk. We also have Mark Drenick as an example is creating a committee that is not under the influence of the city for Main Street.
Mhm.
So he's taken initiative to
Right, that's lovely.
support businesses, et cetera. And that's good too.
Right,
Dave?
it's lovely. So, but they can't approve or recommend for approval install art on public property, which is what this commission is intending to do.
Oh, sure.
Is
And the
increase the
public
amount
property
of
is that property which is
art
owned,
experience.
that property which is owned, buildings
it's
or
defined in the-
streets in Oneonta. Okay. Dave?
It's defined in the legislation. Yep.
I like this. The one change I'd like to recommend is very small here.
Mhm.
Under 8-4, number 2.
Okay.
The words "but are affiliated in some way." If we remove
Okay.
that, so then it would say there'll be 7 voting members that'll consist of artists from the field of design, visual arts, architecture, landscape architecture, as well as members of the public who are not artists, period. The reason why is I'm not an artist, but I appreciate art. I like art. I too think having an art walk would be amazing here, but I wouldn't want to be excluded from being able to sit on this board or commission. I agree that
Sure.
ideally we should have artists on this, but I wouldn't want to exclude anybody else from being on there. We may actually find it would become difficult at some point to fill this potentially, hopefully never, but I wouldn't want to run into that
Well,
problem.
yeah, we have a pretty robust arts community.
Right. But
Yeah, I
I
understand
would
that.
want to be able to
I think
allow
that is-
people that are not artists but love art to be able to sit on this too, because I think they should have
Yeah.
a voice here.
Well, Sure. Would a love and then ideally, right, that love would manifest as an involvement in some way, like, oh, I go to every Cano opening, so I'm involved in the community. I think that is what the intention of that statement is to open it up to people with the interest. I like what you're saying, and the intention isn't to exclude people. It's just to say, if they're not artists, they should have this interest and proclivity.
If I could just add to that, the process to get people onto a committee or a commission of this sort, people would go to the mayor or go to one of us and say, I'd like to do that. We communicated to the mayor. The mayor would nominate them and then we would approve them, correct?
Yes.
So, in terms of putting criteria about, we have to trust ourselves because we'll vote on each person and trust the mayor to use judgment about anything from
Right.
the sanity of the person to the quality of their work or their reputation in the community. We'd have to do that. And as the mayor makes the nomination, we would follow that up. So it's, again, to me, I think there's something built into the purpose of the commission that doesn't need to be addressed with they are artists. I think that that's very likely what's going to be the case, which is fine. But again, to write it into law that someone will be this, I think is unnecessary. I think it'll happen.
Well, thank you for the suggestion. I have it written down. Really?
Luke,
Yeah, Katie, the one thing, and I don't feel strongly one way or another about the particular wording, but maybe a ground that we can settle on is because, like you said, the intent is not to be exclusionary; it's to bring folks that are interested, and maybe just changing the words from affiliated with or to interested in some way.
That's what I started to say, but I got interrupted earlier. Thank you, Luke.
Sure.
Sorry. Could you just repeat
sure.
that so that we can write it down?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my usual earphones. Is this coming through okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was
I
saying
just also have some.
I was saying maybe changing the wording simply to something as simple as, instead of saying are affiliated with, to interested in art. Even though
Gotcha.
that way, like you said, it kind of calls out to folks that are interested, but isn't excluding to folks that maybe like Dave who like art but couldn't cut it as an artist.
Gotcha. I understand. Dave, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No.
did I
Oh,
interrupt
okay.
you?
Yes.
Good.
But I do have to interrupt. When we're done with this topic, if I could have like 1 minute to go back to the other topic, Mark Davies texted me a solution to add into the purpose that I think might make John feel a little bit better. And if we're going to add it in, we need to add it in now, so then I can prepare it and then lay it on the desk. So that's all.
Katie, if I could just point out that I don't think any of our boards and commissions specify any kind of qualifications for any of their members. For example, planning doesn't
Yeah.
say you have to have an interest in planning. So
Right.
So to even say that you have to have human rights doesn't say you have to have an interest in human rights. So I'm not even sure it makes sense to even say people have an interest in art, because who else is going to volunteer to be on it, and who else is going to be selected and approved?
That's fair.
Certainly
I mean, I
nobody
think
that hates art.
Right. So I totally understand what you're saying. I think so that language came another municipality who has a successful arts commission. In fact, it's from more than one, that language written in. And I think that I found merit in it because, we're asking these folks to develop a strategic plan to effectively change the face of public spaces. And I think that having qualifications similar to John's point of the board of the electricians and plumbers, these are folks, if we're going to, allow them to strategize for that large impact on the city, we may want them to have some qualifications and some strategic vision. I liked that language from the other municipalities. I definitely have taken the point with regard to our affiliate in some way. For me, that felt vague enough that the mayor could kind of make up whatever he wanted to in terms of this person saw a play once. But if others feel that not, or that is some exclusive language, I can definitely rework that. I'm not gonna die on that hill.
Katie, I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other, just pointing out that it would be unique.
Okay.
I would be.
Yeah,
fine with
I
leaving it
felt
as-
like that.
I would be fine with leaving it as written, as long as that wordage, like Luke was talking to you about, is changed slightly at the very end of that sentence. Then, I'm okay with it.
Gotcha. Okay, great, thanks. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
I'm
Excellent.
fine
So,
with moving it forward
Me
for
too.
discussion or for
Wonderful.
table for
Thank you.
discussion, and
Thank you.
whatever the council wants to do.
I'm frankly shocked that we haven't had one of these in the city of Oneonta before, considering
Yeah.
we
Doesn't
find
it feel like a
we feel that
no-brainer?
we're an artist community.
So I just
I,
want,
Yes,
I just
and
want
it's
to
remarkable,
clarify,
like what we've been able to do.
are you
I
saying
think
that
that
you're
we'll be
gonna
able
lay
to do
this
much
on,
more.
are you gonna lay this on the desks or the council, send it out to council tonight to be on next week's council?
Tonight.
meeting? Is that, okay,
Correct.
okay.
Yes.
If you want it
Yep.
to be on the agenda for next week, we'll
Um,
get it out
Yeah,
tonight.
Dave. Yes,
I'm done.
Dave, to your point, I think it's incredible what we've been able to do in terms of, positioning ourselves and creating, we have created with some sort of central force. And so I think that this will be a really good, positive thing for the community. So, and I have some backup data in case everyone needs it on the economic benefit of public art. So I would be thrilled to put out to you if that's something that folks would be interested in.
Dave,
Sure. I was just going to ask you, John, because I'm looking at the time. To first answer Katie, I think that would be great to have that information if you want to send it out to everybody. John, in the interest of time, are we finished with talking about this topic? Can we jump
Sure.
to the original one first?
I think
Katie
I
has
am.
to bring up.
I'm sorry, I just have one more thing. So one of the folks that I got input on this from Steve Urley, and he had mentioned that the potential, so it's written in legislation as it stands now, that the applications will be received by the clerk office. And he had mentioned that the code office would also be a potential avenue for that. And so while we have Carrie, do we still have Carrie? I wanted to just get her thoughts and the rest of the council, the rest of the committee's thoughts on what you think the most efficient process for processing those applications would be.
I would think having them come into one central point, for example, either our office or the code enforcement office, then they could check for any potential violations or variances that maybe need. So coming into either
Okay,
their office or ours, and then we can take them when they're completed
Yeah.
and forward them to the commission.
yeah. Would you rather them go to your office or code, like which one makes more efficient, effective, easier?
I think with the inclination that there may be some that are in the right of way that may have variance issues, that might have sign constrictions. I mean, I would think that an initial review would pass through their
Oh.
office. And then they would come to us for submission to the commission. And that
gotcha.
way we have the final full copy as the official record.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, so I will just make that update then in the legislation before I lay it on the desks, just so the committee is aware. Thank you, Carrie.
Dave,
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, if we can just jump back to the Housing Commission. What Mark was suggesting is at the paragraph, the first paragraph, 158-1, findings and purpose, the last sentence, the purpose of the Housing Commission will be to evaluate and address these issues in order to benefit the community as a whole. He suggested saying that the purpose of the Housing Commission will be to evaluate and address these issues in a manner that is consistent with the comprehensive plan in order to benefit the community as a whole. I think that's a very simple solution. I think it's a great idea. Any thoughts?
and I would just suggest including the earlier study that you were involved with in 2013. That also has suggestions. But yeah, I think the comprehensive plan is really the document we voted on most, and it has very specific, most recently, and it has these concerns and a number of others that we ought to be looking at sometime.
Do we
So
want to
there.
stay consistent with the comprehensive and strategic plan of the city?
Well, I don't know, we have a strategic plan that is up to date. That's fine. The comprehensive plan is the one we voted on. And it has, and it is aging out too. There's some things in the comprehensive plan that are actually in process now that are not future oriented, but they're things that are happening. They're in process. So, but I think it does both for art and it talks about, and this is a way of actualizing art and housing.
Okay.
on a committee structure.
Does anybody else have any objection to me switching that last sentence then? Okay.
Nope,
I
we'll
will-
discuss it.
I will write this up. I will send it out to the entire council. And Carrie, I'll send it to you. Is it okay if I send a Word document to the entire council? Or would you rather?
Prefer it PDF.
All right, I'll fix this now and send it out to you right away then. And would you mind then forwarding it on to the whole council?
Not a problem. I was actually going to tactfully suggest that you allow that to happen so that it's
Okay,
easier to track.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a point of order with Gary, if these both get laid on the council, and they'll be up for a vote at the next council meeting?
Correct.
Okay, so for more discussion or disagreement, we would need to simply table until it was resolved for another time. Okay,
Well, table or vote it down.
okay, yeah,
Or vote to approve it despite the fact that 3 people don't like it.
sure. Okay. We're good. I'd be
Everyone.
happy to. We have to get out of here in a minute anyway, so are we done?
I think we're done.
Good.